Hello, everyone. Going to give folks a chance to get settled in electronically here before, or virtually, before we get started. But it's good to see some familiar names and faces in the audience, and really great to have you guys here with us. Dr. Garcia is in the house, so we know this is really happening, and we were just talking before we came on about kind of some plans for next year and moving forward, and really hope to see and include many of you in some of these projects and initiatives. So really do appreciate everyone's continued support and attendance at these events. I know that a lot of folks, myself included, are going back to the office, and it's harder to divide your time between virtual events and face-to-face meetings and events. So I really do appreciate everyone taking the time to join us for another essential substance abuse skills training webinar. Really glad to have you guys here, and again, great to see some familiar names and faces. Kevin just keeps showing up to these events. He's just like, I don't know, Kevin, we might have to hire you at some point. I don't know. And I see Filipita there, and Mel, and several others that I know have, and Bertie is there. I really appreciate you guys showing up for these events. So thank you so much. My name is Steve Steiny. I'm one of the managers here at the National American Indian Alaska Native Addiction Technology Transfer Center. And I have also with me here Dr. Avis Garcia. And I'll tell you a little bit more about her, but she'll be presenting on some really important information related to behavioral health counseling field. I always remind folks that these modules are really geared towards a wide range of audience. If you're just starting in the field, this series is a great way to sort of build your knowledge base, and as you get ready to practice or in the early stages of your own professional development. And even those of us that have been practicing for a while, this is also a good refresher, and it gives you sometimes a chance to pass along information or experiences that you've had in a clinical setting or in a lived experience. Pass those along to maybe folks that are just getting started. So we really want to encourage interaction today and moving forward. So please use the chat box or the hand raise feature, or if you're really feeling bold, unmute and jump in there, and let's have a conversation. So again, great to see everyone here. Today's ESAS topic is counseling families, partners, and significant others. I'm going to go through just a few basic introductory slides, and then I'll turn it over to Dr. Garcia, let her talk a little, introduce herself a little bit, and then we'll pull up the main slide deck for today. As most of you know by now, this event is brought to you by the National American Indian Alaska Native Addiction Technology Transfer Center. We are a national center located at the University of Iowa. I'm broadcasting to you live from the College of Public Health here at the University of Iowa. We have got almost 70 degrees here today and sunny, so I think this really feels like spring. So those of you that maybe are up a little further north, I promise you it's going to get better. We are made up, we are part of a larger national network made up of 10 regional centers, a National Hispanic and Latinx ATTC, as well as a national coordinating office located at the University of Missouri. Again, most of you know that this program is sponsored and supported and funded by SAMHSA. The content is developed by the presenters and our center, and the opinions expressed today do not necessarily reflect the views or policies of SAMHSA, HHS, or the American Indian Alaska Native ATTC as a whole. Just a couple other things to keep in mind. We are recording today's event, and we'll make that a link to our archive of all of our recorded webinars. We'll make that link available to you in a follow-up email. At that time, you can also request continuing education units. We're going to offer 1.5 CEUs today. They are NADAC approved, and you can hopefully utilize those or put those towards your active licensure or certification in your respective state. We will also send out a PDF version of today's slides. I just ask that if you use those, use them for good and give credit to the authors of the presentation. And lastly, I'll put in the chat box today just a link to a very short survey. We really would love to hear back from you, letting us know, if this topic and this webinar was useful to you. We added a couple of short answer questions to the survey so we can hear from you in your own words as well. I assure you this survey is confidential and can't be linked to you in any way personally. If you have any questions about the survey, reach out to myself or to Avis, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have. I know, excuse me, I know we're gathered here, excuse me, virtually today, but we wanted to take a few moments to pay respect to the land and to the indigenous nations whose homelands were forcibly taken and inhabited. Please take a moment to read this land acknowledgement that was created by 3 former members of our team, Ella and Keely Driscoll and Mr. Sean Bear. Thank you. Well, without further ado, I want to introduce to you today Avis Garcia. She is an enrolled member of the Northern Arapaho tribe and is affiliated with the Eastern Shoshone tribes of the Wind River Reservation in Wyoming. She has worked with our center for several years now. I've had the honor and privilege of working collaboratively with her on numerous projects. I consider her a colleague, and I also consider her my friend. So I'll let her talk to you a little bit more about what brings her here to this webinar and a little bit about her own background and experiences. So Avis, I'm going to transition the slide deck and turn the floor over to you. Thank you again, everyone, for being here.
Okay, good morning, good afternoon, whatever time it is where you're tuning in to this webinar from. I am currently in Crow Agency, Montana. I have been here for close to 2 years now, and I have been in the substance abuse and mental health fields as a licensed professional counselor and addictions therapist for 21 years, going on 22 almost. So I always feel funny when I say that myself because I can't believe that it's been that long. I have a varied experience in the substance abuse field with all levels of treatment. My first job as a counselor with a master's degree was at a residential program in Rock Springs, Wyoming. And from there, I've just kind of gone to different places to work with different levels of treatment, mental health. I'm from the Wind River Reservation in Wyoming, and I am planning on returning to the reservation in a month. So possibly the next time I present, I may be presenting from there. I have been with the Addiction Technology Transfer Center since 2019, and I have my doctorate in counselor education and supervision, but I also do some side work, which is how I got started doing this, and I like doing these because I like to teach. And so this for me is an opportunity to do some teaching. And I am going to be presenting this session today, the ESAS for counseling families, partners, and significant others. I may stop from time to time and ask some questions, and I usually like to gauge and see how many licensed counselors we have out there. And because we're talking about working with families and others today, I'm checking to see if there's any licensed marriage and family counselors out there in the audience today.
Yeah, Avis, I can create a quick poll while you're still talking, and we can find
Okay.
out.
Okay. Yeah, that would be great. I don't know. I know we're doing this to help people um, who are planning to sit for the licensing or certification exam. And I can't remember, well, so it's 21 years. So maybe 21 years ago, I sat for my exam. And as I recall, and I still have my scores, and I just passed the exam. So I was relieved to have just passed, but not too thrilled that I didn't do better than I expected. But for those of you that are already working in the field and are getting ready to sit for the exam, just know that your work will really help when you go take the exam, because I remember well that when I took the exam, I was like, oh, a lot of the stuff I wouldn't have known had I not had some work experience in the field before I took the exam. So I'm glad you guys are here today. It lets me know you're interested in learning. And if you're preparing for the exam, I wish you luck. And we do these every month. And we are also going to be going online in May, aren't we, Steve? In case anybody wants to join the 4-day training that we have coming up.
Yes, that's right. We are offering a 4-day alcohol and drug certification exam prep course. We're focused on the Albuquerque area. We'll be doing this live with a group in the Albuquerque area, but we do have some virtual spaces available. So if you're interested, and this course is essentially preparing one to sit for the exam. So it's a lot of content, but it's also focused on test preparation. So sitting for that standardized sort of test format and really using some strategies to help you prepare for that. So yeah, if you're interested, I'll put my email in the chat a little bit later, and you can reach out, and I can send you the registration link if you're interested. So yeah, thanks for mentioning that, Avis. And Avis and I will be co-teaching that course along with some other of our consultants and advisory council members. So looking forward to it.
Okay, I'm ready to roll whenever you are. Oh, yeah, we were looking at people's background.
Yes, the MFT is marriage and family. I know Avis had mentioned that earlier. So yeah, we've got about 65% of you. And again, this poll is completely anonymous, so we don't see who's answering how. And but I think this will give Avis and I a good indication of who all we have out there. And yeah, so looks like we got about 75% of you chiming in. Let's give a couple more seconds for folks to answer this poll, and then I'll share the results with everyone, and
Okay.
we'll go from there. Okay, we got about almost 80% of you chiming in. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share these results. You can see there we've got a pretty good diverse group here, Avis.
Mhm. Cool.
Not a lot of we only have one NFT out there. You're not alone. There are others. They're just not here today.
Mm-hmm.
And that I know is can be a challenging area to work in as well. But yeah, it looks like we've got good batch of social workers with us, substance use disorder, and some mental health providers as well. So, okay.
Cool. Yeah. Good bunch of social work.
Okay, I'm going to take that poll down. There we go. Okay, Avis, are you ready for me to advance the slides so we get started?
Yes, I am.
Okay, here we go. There's that one.
Okay. Okay, this is the goals and objectives for today. So by the time we're done here, you should understand the characteristics and dynamics of families, couples, and others affected by substance use. Be familiar with some models used of diagnosis and intervention for families, couples, and others in extended family. Be able to understand how the basics of assisting families, couples, and others to understand the interaction between the family system and substance use behaviors. Also, to assist families and couples and others to adopt strategies and behaviors that sustain recovery to maintain healthy relationships. We can go to the next slide. Concepts and foundations. Okay, some of the key reasons to use family therapy is, of course, to build upon family strengths, to improve communication, decrease conflict, reduce the impact of the substance use disorder, mental health issues, or significant change events within the family dynamic. And then, of course, there's the other. Here where we're at, well, where I'm at in the Crow agency area, it's not every day we get families involved, and we are working on adjusting our adolescent program to make the family component be a required, almost mandatory part of the treatment program, because we often see people, bringing their kids and wanting to drop them off, and when do they pick them up, and a lot of what goes on in the home can be a support to that person, or it can be a trigger. So it's really important to get a good assessment on the family and offer help wherever we can. And again, marriage and family therapists in native country that are native are rare. So whoever is out there who's actually doing this, I applaud you. I am not a marriage and family therapist, but I do have experience in working with families and couples. So we can go to the next slide. So family, what does family mean to you? There are several bullets here. There is the ancestral sense. In the early 15C, it says the household recorded in English from the 1540s. Of the modern sense, those connected by blood, whether living together or not, from the mid 1600s, which was later replaced with an adjective meaning suitable for a family by the 1800s. From 1809, a family man, one devoted to wife and children. is, and then in 1856, the buzzword family values was first recorded in 1966. Also a group of relatives, a group who are closely related by birth, marriage, or adoption, people living together, your lineage, those who are descended from a common ancestor. And for those of us who are Native American, this goes beyond parents and siblings. I grew up in a family where I don't know how many people have told me my grandmother adopted them or raised them. And I was raised by my grandparents, as are a lot of Native people. And for some of us, it's just a family tradition. The kids just like to go hang out with the grandparents, or at least I did anyway. And we have extended family, and that's just how natives are. And we also adopt a lot of people, and I myself have kids that like to consider me an adopted mom. So I'm always honored when I have someone who wants to claim me, and I take kids in too, because that's just how I was raised. We can go on to the next slide. Family therapy defined. Family therapy is often seen as a type of psychotherapy that involves all members of a nuclear family or a step family, and in some cases, members of the extended and adopted family, grandparents, foster parents, and legal guardian. A therapist or team of therapists conducts multiple sessions to help families deal with important issues that interfere with the functioning of the family, a patient's recovery, and the level of support in the home environment. Go to the next slide. Some key concepts. The whole system is more than the sum of its parts. As I was telling you, we always have the identified patient, but a lot of times they share situations that they're dealing with at home. And if we can get the family involved, it's always good if we can do that. Parts of a system are interconnected. Certain rules determine the functioning of a family system, and systems are dynamic, carefully balancing continuity against change. And I think on the Wind River Reservation, where I was at, the most family therapy I had was when we were running an adolescent crisis program, and parents most often were the ones that brought their children into the program and wanting to get them help. So I was always wanting to bring the whole family to sit together so that they could all help the person that they brought in. And I thought that worked pretty well. And we can go to the next slide. The purpose of family therapy, and the goal is to help the family to improve communication, solve some family problems, understand and handle special family situations, such as a death, a divorce, serious injury, substance abuse, mental illness, or adolescent issues, and create a better functioning home environment. The description of family therapy is it's typically the family therapy is initiated to address a specific problem, such as an adolescent with a psychological disorder, a substance use disorder, or adjustment to death or significant change in the family structure. Frequently, the therapy sessions reveal additional problems in the family, such as communication issues. In the therapy session, therapists seek to analyze the process of family interaction and communication as a whole, and do not take sides with specific family members. Whenever I get an opportunity to do family therapy, I like to include when I'm doing the family therapy, if possible, I like to include another therapist. It just seems to work well for me, so that I have somebody to consult with as we continue to work with the family. So I take a team approach of working with families. And then therapists who work as a team can model new behaviors for the family through their interactions with each other during the session. Okay.
I just kind of asked the audience, Avis, if anyone wanted to add anything to
Okay.
those points or considerations. And then I had thrown in the chat too, working with families in a group setting can, when you mentioned having another, like a co-therapist or co-facilitator, that can really be uh, helpful and sometimes really important. Uh,
Well, I mean, now that you bring that up, Steve, I share with people sometimes what brought me to this work and got my interest to begin with was I had a sibling who went to treatment when she was very young, and this was a group family therapy situation. They had all the family sitting at tables in the room, and it was a family day that we were invited to. So I took my grandparents to my sister's treatment program, and they treated. I mean, we all sat as a whole group. The room was full, and I was really interested in, like, wow, this is really interesting. This is really cool. How can I do this? I mean, I didn't even set foot in a college classroom yet, but I was inspired by actually some family therapy by a treatment program that my sister was in. And so from there, I, did my, talk to the people there, of course, and asked them what their credentials were and what degrees they had and what did I need to get where I am now. So it was very helpful, and it was really good because the family got to look at the dysfunctional family, which I'll talk about a little bit later. Some challenges to involving family in the treatment process is a general resistance and unwillingness, severe deterioration of a family unit, the opportunity and time to engage the family, impaired family members. Some may be actively using, have some mental health issues that haven't been addressed yet, and past abuse or domestic violence, revealing unresolved conflict, potential for harm or marked increase in conflict, lack of staff experience and or training, and other barriers. So I'm seeing Steve is making some comments in here, and he makes note of seeking consultation to make sure you're practicing within your scope of training. And that is a very important issue to bring up, because not everyone has that experience. It's okay to provide education, like if you're providing family education, it's fine. It's when you're actually doing actual therapy that you should be a licensed therapist or be training under a licensed therapist to practice in that manner. Um, there is not a natives are, I want to say, resistant and unwilling to come to therapy because there's some shame involved and not wanting to, get to the real issues that are there, and just being able to talk. And oftentimes where I'm at now, I I often get, it's usually a grandmother, how the grandmothers are out here with us native people, that may bring a family member in. And so when I have the family member here and they're telling me grandma's making me be here, so I ask them, can we bring grandma in? And let's get involved. So I actually have had a few people where it's just been a couple family members at a time, but I feel it's been really beneficial to bring them in and help them learn to communicate better with each other. And I often find that the whole communication is a big part of the issue of not wanting to say how one really feels because they might upset someone in the family. But it is it's kind of a difficult thing, but I think once people know you offer this service, some people will seek it out. And when I was on the Wind River Reservation last, I did have people coming in and wanting couples therapy and wanting to do family therapy. So there were a few that willingly wanted it. So I'm starting to see more of an increase of interest in this in Indian country. And go to the next session. Slide, sorry.
Yes, I appreciate that too, and I really appreciate Cheryl's story. And a couple other things I would say that I would consider is, and Avis kind of touched on this, but sometimes involving the family is not in the best interest of the patient, and you have to consider whether or not it may do more harm to involve family members that may not be supportive of that uh, that person's recovery or may not understand. Some of the most difficult cases I had were working with youth or young adults whose parents were actively using. And and how do you involve a parent in the youth's treatment if they are not ready or to be supportive of that, and maybe even condoning use at home? So it really becomes an ethical and professional sort of consideration at that point. And I have to be able to reach out and determine whether or not this may be a case where I uh, make a referral out to someone who is trained to work with families, um, or even involving the family peripherally in small components. We would bring a parent or guardian in the final session of the youth's treatment to review their continuing care plan and highlight some of the things that they had accomplished and achieved during their treatment stay. And it was a nice way for the parent and youth to sort of talk about what happens when they come home or what happens, as treatment ends. So it can really be a challenge in many ways. But I think if anyone else has anything they want to add to that, we'd love to hear from you. Yeah, Cheryl's making a good point there too. I don't know, Cheryl, if you want to share that with the group off mute.
Okay, yeah, she noted that the treatment program in the area she is requires the family to take classes before being able to visit their loved one. Hmm. I'm curious if you have policy to that effect on a side note. Okay, we'll go into the foundations. Um, First, there is the individual therapy that can provide the concentrated focus to help people become more fully themselves. And then the family therapy believes the dominant forces in our lives are located externally in the family. So family therapy is directed toward changing the organization of the family. Some perspectives. Here's one that will most likely be on the exam, is the Bowenian perspective. This is a comprehensive view of human behavior and human problems that looks at unresolved issues with our original families is the most important. Centered around two counterbalancing life forces, togetherness and individuality. So that's how you interact with your family and how you are apart from your family. So there's a differentiation between balancing your thinking and your feelings. Can go to the next slide. The experiential perspective. This is designed to change families by changing family members. Families are treated as groups of individuals more than as systems. Enhance sensitivity and expand awareness are the essential aims of the treatment. and focus on interpersonal change and a commitment to growth as opposed to problem solving. Structural family therapy is a way of looking at families. So some of the techniques used are reframing, punctuation, unbalancing, restructuring, and enactment. So there is the boundary formation, working with spontaneous interaction, intensity, and shaping competence. And then there is the strategic perspective derived from a combination of Ericksonian hypnotherapy and Batesonian cybernetics. This has developed a body of powerful procedures and they vary in the specifics of theory and technique. The cognitive behavioral perspective is where the clinician is seen as the teacher. Substitute positive controls. Family symptoms are treated as learned responses, involuntarily acquired and reinforced. So there is the focus on subsystems considered central to the targeted behaviors. Current perspectives. The solutions focused perspective. It's a pragmatic minimalism, cognitive emphasis, and easily teachable techniques. De-emphasis on history and underlying pathology. Patients concentrate on solutions rather than on problems. They have little to say about how problems arise. Prefer to focus on the future. Prominent contributors are Milton Erickson, Jay Haley, Chloe Madanes, Tom Anderson, and Michael White. And this is one of my favorite. I use this in my individual therapy, my group therapy, and with family. So I like the solution focused. The narrative perspective, personal narrative and social construction. So narrative truth versus the historical truth. Incompatible with systems thinking and has distanced itself from the concept and methods of traditional family therapy. And then the techniques is a lot of storytelling, and the person may, share their story, and then if it's not a good story and there's some trauma issues and um, past negative influences involved, this is where they have an opportunity to rewrite the story and change the story and make it go back. Make it a better story in the end. So like if you could rewrite the story, how would you do that? So I love the narrative perspective. It falls in line perfectly with working with Native people. The functional perspective is concerned with the function that family behavior is designed to achieve, assumes that most family behaviors are attempts to become more or less intimate, set up contingency management programs to help them get the kind of intimacy they want more directly, and blends strategic and behavioral therapies. The family disease perspective encourages people to fight problems with medication, support groups, and education rather than to explore the network of relationships in which their problems were embedded. Multisystemic and multidimensional perspectives resulted out of research with difficult adolescents, uses a combination of techniques, actively considering and intervening into the extra-familial systems in which families are embedded. The multidimensional family therapy was developed by Howard Little from the University of Miami in 1985. The multidimensional family therapy is an integrated, comprehensive, family-centered treatment for teen drug abuse and related behavioral problems. Multidimensional family therapy focuses on key areas of the adolescent's life and provides an effective and cost-efficient treatment. Some strategies and techniques for working with families. The first is proper seating. The patient should feel supported. You want to have a calm and comfortable environment. Meeting with everyone separately and then together. Rapport with the identified patient. Be prepared with an agenda, but flexible if the need arises. It is a process. Allow for several sessions to reach goals and objectives. Modeling communication, managing conflict, and negative language.
Anyone have any other things we might add to this list based on their own experiences working with families?
I'm looking at this one that says allow several sessions to reach goals and objectives. And working with Native families, I would say I've never really had a family work for several sessions, which is why I prefer solution focused, because they're more likely to come for 4 or 5 at the most. I don't see them as people that continue to come. I often see my work in working with Native people that they come in crisis. And once the crisis is resolved, then they tend to kind of go out on their own and not return for continued family therapy. So, and sometimes it doesn't always work either. So I like this, be prepared to be flexible if the need arises. But the main goal for me has been increasing communication with family.
And I think I might add too, and I don't know how others feel about this, but I know when I was working with families in a collaborative joint effort years ago, and one of the things that we had to do was really adjust our schedules. So if I was going to ask the family, parent or guardian, to come in with the youth for a session, I needed to sometimes have early evening appointments available so that I could accommodate them. And that was a small but important piece. And then the other thing I think I would add, and maybe others can relate to this, is we had sort of this protocol where if the session became too heated or started to really become counterproductive, we would ask for a 5, just to take 5. And we would kind of, maybe the parent or guardian would step out or the youth would step out and take just a short break. So then maybe that falls in with, being flexible, because if I go in with this agenda that we have to get all of these things done and we go off script, as a clinician, I need to be prepared to say, maybe we'll come back to that next time, or let's take a break and kind of take a few deep breaths. So I don't know if others have had experiences like that working with couples or families or siblings. Anybody want to share? That would be great.
We can move on to the next slide.
Yes, we know working with families can be intimidating and can be sometimes challenging. So, but yeah, if you want to post something, yeah, like Sarah says in the chat, establish family goals and rules for the session. Yeah, we used to have fair fighting rules, and it was okay to have some conflict, but certain things were off limits. But yeah, that's great, great suggestion and reminder, Sarah. Thank you. Yeah, Chenoa says share a feelings wheel to help each other understand why they're actually feeling or what they're actually feeling. Yeah, that's great. I haven't used a feelings wheel, but I've seen them, and I can see how that would be really really helpful. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Okay, Davis, we go to the next slide.
Yes. Some cultural considerations. The definition of family of origin is the birth or biological family or any family system instrumental or significant in a patient's early development. Cultural considerations, increased immigration and contact with the global media exposed cultures. Is our own worldview healthy? Differences aren't necessarily problematic, and overemphasis on ethnicity can lead counselors to exaggerate the difference between themselves and their patients. And ethnicity is a powerful meaning generator.
I like that too. I often found myself looking for similarities within those patients that I felt were very different from me. This sometimes gave me a chance to see our differences in a different light, a different perspective. So that's so that's what I think about when I see this slide.
Excuse me. Race and ethnicity, American Indians, Native Americans, and Alaskan Natives. The Native American family based on some Native traditions. And this is kind of like a genogram for the grandparents. Okay, here's your grandparents, and here's your mother and your father, and here's yourself with your brothers and your sisters. And if you have any children and their children and grandchildren, but then these are our grandparents. So these would be my father's parents and their grandparents, and then the mothers on the other side. So these are, I'm assuming this is more or less a biological family because we have such extended families of my aunts and uncles are also parental figures, and our cousins are our brothers and our sisters. And it's just, I've never really got to understand how the European people relate. Sometimes people will point it out to me, and I'm like, I just stick to how I'm related to my family in the Native community. Any comments on this?
Hi, this is Jean. If I could share,
Angie, yeah.
do you know, I was raised by my grandparents, my mother's
Mhm.
Dakota, and my grandparents are Dakota. And
Mhm.
I appreciate they were that were dysfunctional, they were alcoholics, but they still incorporated Dakota traditions, like naming, feather
Mhm.
ceremony,
Mhm.
and even burial. And I remember those things, and I'm sharing them. So now that I moved back home to South Dakota, I made an assumption that other families also shared that Dakota culture and teachings with them. And I'm finding that is mostly not the case. And so, I'm relearning again that, um, the foundation of our culture, not everyone has that knowledge, and it's good to share.
Mhm.
So when I first started doing presentations, I was hesitant because I thought, I don't know if I remember everything correctly or if I'm doing this correctly. So, and I would say, if somebody would like to offer some knowledge or participate, I open it up. But I found that there wasn't. And then as they got to know me, they would share something. So I had to readjust my approach and now when we do this, I want to know if you are aware of how your family or community conducted this. And I want you to help me learn too, and I'll help you. And you really have to open up with being sincere and wanting
Mhm.
to share that knowledge. But
Mhm.
yeah, you kind of think you know people, but you really don't. So it's always good to be open and, having sincerity and kindness in your heart when you talk with people. And the other thing I want to comment is when I'm working with younger people, not necessarily youth, but maybe younger adults, I've come across those who unfortunately don't know who their fathers are.
Mhm.
Or some, they may have never met their mother.
Mhm.
So that was the other thing that I learned to kindly ask. Being raised by my grandparents, I would say, do you know if this is information you want to share with your family, your mother, father, your auntie, uncle, your grandparents, or in the home that you reside, your relatives or family you've made in your home? That way I covered everybody, and I didn't have anybody singled out as being different. But yeah, it was you think you kind of know a lot, and then when you start working with people, you learn about yourself, and you learn how to be more open and helping people.
I appreciate you bringing that up, Jean, because I was raised by my grandparents too, and um, I learned as I went out into my own community the same thing that you encountered of, and I see it here often. Um, we assume that other tribal members know and practice the same ways when in a lot of the time they don't. And I remember my grandparents telling me, we're teaching you this, but your mom should be doing this, but she's not doing it, so this is why we're doing it, you know. And working in substance abuse, I have so many people that I see regularly who state exactly what you said, don't know my father's side, or they don't know their mother, you know. And I grew up in a alcohol family, so that's why my grandparents, you know, raised me, and I was glad that they did. And um, I grew up in that kind of environment too. So I appreciate you speaking up and chiming in on this section.
So I just wanted to add a little bit of insight. As many of you may know, I'm not native. I was born and raised in New Zealand. My tribe is Ngāpuhi.
Okay.
And so when I was growing up, every relative who was the generation before you, we called aunties and uncles. And every relative who was older than we called grandparents.
Mhm.
When I first moved to Hawaii, that wasn't the practice, but what's happening there now and here in Utah amongst Pacific Islander populations is the term auntie and uncle has now become a term of respect.
Mm.
So that, like, for example, a Samoan guy who's younger than me emailed me the other day and calls me Uncle Eru, because that's what we do now. And I like that, by the way. And I don't know if that has any reference to what we're talking about, but it certainly has helped to create a more unified community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Edwin, it's great to see you on. Always love to hear your voice. We missed you in Talking Circles, so
Thank you.
love to see you again.
Okay, this is the 7 values of the Dakota, Lakota, Nakota life. This is for helping the people. I'm a Arapaho, but a lot of these are the same for my people as well, which is our wisdom, humility, generosity and helping, being caring and compassionate, having respect, and praying. So a lot of these are some common values of other native tribes as well. So this is just one of the slides that was in this deck here. We also need to be mindful of the sexual and gender orientations of working with the native LGBTQ population and the Two-Spirit people. And so this can also change family dynamics. The lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender family networks, the LGBT people, may create replacement family networks that are made up of individuals who are significant to them when individuals who have passed on are no longer an immediate part of the patient's life because of addiction, HIV/AIDS, a relationship breakup, or any other life events, including friends, partners, families of partners, ex-significant others, and blood relatives. Stages of family change. There is the attainment of sobriety, the adjustment to sobriety, and the long-term maintenance of sobriety. So this is something that the family needs to be supportive of to help the identified person who needs help. The family dynamics, previously referred to as codependency. Other words could be dysfunctional families. The verb often referred to is enabling. Control others as they believe they are incapable of taking care of themselves. Have low self-esteem and a tendency to deny their own feelings. And excessively compliant. Family dynamics, Continues, often react in an oversensitive manner, a hypervigilance and a lower tolerance for stress, remain loyal to people who do nothing to deserve their loyalty, and feel less able or powerless to influence the family dynamics, and there is domestic violence. And then there's a link here to a story.
Yeah, I think it's a link to a TED Talk. I'm
Okay.
not sure if it's still active, but it's one we had up last year.
Okay.
We can make that available if you're interested.
Patient lives with partner and minor children. Similar to maltreatment victims, children believe the abuse is their fault. Children feel guilty and responsible for their parents' drinking problem. Trust and intimacy are key child development issues. And at increased risk for mood and anxiety disorders, increased rates of divorce, violence, and the need for control in relationships. Some children develop resiliency and adaptability. So when people are actively using, they don't realize what impact it's having on children who don't really understand what is going on. So there are a few that are resilient. So it doesn't affect everybody, but it does have a lot of can cause a lot of problems in children as they grow up.
Yeah, we see that too. You know, even in ACE scores, you know, they aren't a standalone determinant because, you know, I've had discussions where a person has a very high ACE score but has really shown resilience and adapted, and then someone else maybe with a lower or moderate ACE score is really impacted and disabled from their early experiences.
Mhm.
I know when I was, I'm not trained to work with children, but I worked a lot with youth, and I know that one of the sort of terms I came up with a youth that really didn't get that love and nurturing in that first 5 years of their life, and this might be evident through, you know, information that's been gathered. I used to call them the first 5 year youth, you know, and that was because I knew that they were going to often have deficits and struggle because they didn't get those crucial love and nurturing early on. And then, but as you know, Avis referenced, you know, youth are very resilient and can really adapt. So it isn't always a predictor. Anyway, I just thought I'd put that in there.
Adolescent who lives with family of origin. We could have violent behavior, delinquency, psychiatric disorders, risky sexual behavior, impulsivity, neurological impairment, or developmental impairment. Effects of substance use disorders and family structures. If the patient lives with a partner, patient lives with partner and minor children, patient is part of a blended family, the older patient with adult children, and the adolescent patient and family of origin.
These are sort of combinations that you might see impacted by SUDs, different family family structures that Avis is listing off in these bullet points. I was trying to type that in the chat box, and I thought I'm too slow at typing, so I just saying
jump
it out
in
loud.
anytime.
Yes.
Clinician involvement. 4 levels of clinician involvement with families. The level 1 is a minimal emphasis of family. The level 2 is information and advise. Level 3 is feelings and support. And level 4 is a brief focused intervention.
Yeah, part of the reason why we want to share this slide is those of you that are practicing in the field, whether you're, in social work or substance use disorders or mental health or another related discipline, you have some options on how involved you can or want to, have the family be part of the process with the identified patient. So that's kind of what this slide is referring to. There's quite a bit of information, more information about this if you're interested, but this is just to give you kind of a brief overview.
Okay. The 7 C's for couples and families. There's character features, cultural and ethnic factors, contract features, commitment, caring, communication, and conflict resolution.
I don't know if our MFT in the audience might know about these 7 C's, but if you're out there, I don't know who you are because the poll was anonymous, but we do have one MFT in the house. We just don't know who. We're going to be taking a lottery later to see who can guess who it is, and there'll be prizes. So please, who do you think it is? No, whoever said that they are working as an MFT, I don't know if you're familiar with this or if there's something else we might add about the working with couples and or families.
The character features are the characteristics of a person that tend to be persistent and play a major role in defining that person. Variables that form the context in which individuals and couples exist, and surrounding cultural forces shape relationships.
It's really important too to remember that not all cultures view life or relationships and family the same as you might. So it's important to really check kind of your biases and values, as you're working with, especially with families or couples. So just something else to keep in mind.
Contract features is a set of implicit or explicit expectations that partners have concerning how they will define their relationship and relate with one another. An effective contract is explicit, attainable, mutually agreed upon, and beneficially to both partners. And sometimes what I've encountered is parents talking about parenting issues and not being on the same page with each other in regards to an adolescent of how do we get them to work together and not be on different pages, which only creates confusion for the identified patient. So getting the parents to mutually agree upon, maybe it's how they're going to discipline their children, for example. Commitment, pledge, devoted, or obligated oneself, being involved with, remaining loyal to, and maintaining a relationship over time. So there are 2 types, that is stability and quality. So this is, they are committed to their family relationship over time. Caring, a person's ability to express behaviors that promote emotional and physical intimacy, expressed through affection and sexual intimacy, mutually pleasing activities, quality time together, enjoying a supportive and understanding friendship. Communication, positive daily communications equals relationship success. Negative communications are characterized by expressions of negative feelings such as anger and shame. Thus, the message is not heard by the listener. Conflict resolution, personal skills and interpersonal interaction patterns that promote effective decision making. Here's the acronym SOLVE. S is to stop, slow down, and see the problem. O, outline your options. L, look at consequences of options. V, vote. And E, evaluate. So that's a good conflict resolution strategy.
I sure like that acronym. It looks good on paper, but boy, you throw some good, strong emotions in there and look out. It's hard to keep your cool in a conflict, at least, for me, and I know in my experiences clinically too, it can really be difficult to, that slow down is just crucial.
Mhm.
That pause. So, yeah.
The 7 C's summary. Taking the time to think through personal and relationship areas helps identify strengths to build upon and goals to strive for. Socially compatible personal values and a healthy personality, love and affection, emotional support and balance, loyalty to the partnership with a long-term perspective accompanied by the will to work out problems, open and effective communication, strong family traditions and compatible cultural and ethnic backgrounds, a marital contract that is flexible and a match between expectations and experiences, use of healthy and effective problem solving, anger management, and conflict resolution tools. Taking a family history for all patients, what were the rules of the family system? Was there a history of physical, emotional, spiritual, or sexual trauma? Were all family members expected to behave or evolve in a certain way? What were the family's expectations in regard to careers, relationships, appearance, status, or environment? And in general, was sex ever discussed? And LGBT patients, was anyone else in the family acknowledged as identifying as lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender individual? How did the family respond to the individuals coming out or being identified as LGBT individuals? Is the patient out to his or her family? If the patient is out, what type of response did he or she receive? So our LGBT work, our clients LGBT are more at risk for substance abuse. And those that I have encountered and worked with have shared that, well, the ones that I met did come out to their family did know. It's just they really struggled with their family not accepting them. And for a lot of times it was, by their own parents. But each person has always been able to identify at least one person in the family that they felt close to, that they could get support from my experience. guidelines for working with the LGBT families, demonstrate support and understanding for the life partners and significant others, be sensitive to the individual's self-identification, be sensitive to the diversity and variety of relationships in the LGBT community, demonstrate support and understanding for the life partners and significant others, be sensitive to the individual's self-identification, be sensitive to the diversity and variety of relationships in the LGBT community.
And these are just a few suggestions. If anyone has other ideas or thoughts that we might add to this this guideline, these guideline bullet points, we'd love to hear from you. So we're always open to adding to and making edits and improving. So any suggestions would be welcome.
Individual and organizational mission. Because LGBT communities are underserved and often invisible, it is important to remember that treatment providers make a commitment to serving this population and incorporate the commitment to the organization's mission, philosophy, and service literature, examine all aspects of program for overt and covert expressions and perceptions of heterosexual bias, and make a commitment at every level of the program, from the board of directors to the direct line staff, to design and deliver services in a manner sensitive to the needs of LGBT individuals. Okay. And that's it. Any thoughts, ideas, feedback? Thank you guys for your time you spent here today to go over all of this information that will be included on the exam.
We will include a PDF copy of today's slides as well for those of you that would like this. And we have recorded this event. So if you have a colleague or a friend, coworker that maybe missed the broadcast today, they can find this on our YouTube Native Center for Behavioral Health archive. Just give us about a week to get it edited and downloaded onto the site. But I can share that site with any of you if you're interested. If you're on our listserv, you can find a link to that on our website. But I'm going to, Avis, I'm going to put my email in the chat.
Okay.
Just in case anyone needs to reach out with questions about the survey or about other resources. Avis and I are happy to assist you in any way we can. Any questions or thoughts or comments before we wrap it up? We've got just a few minutes before the bottom of the second hour, and we'd love to hear from you. Oh, did we hear someone?
I'd just like to say those classes that I was saying they require the family to take are very short videos on.
Hi, Cheryl.
Hi.
Hi.
Those classes that I was speaking of that some agencies require families to take before they see their loved ones, they're very short videos on expectations and asking families not to, is focusing on compassion, because you know, many times families think you can just stop.
Yes, right. Yeah. Yeah. Why don't you just quit? What's wrong with you? That kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah. There's still a lot of stigma surrounding that and a lot of misunderstanding. So I appreciate that, Cheryl. It's always good to have you on and have you in the audience. So thank you. Good to hear your voice. Any other thoughts or comments, questions? Avis is here for a few more minutes, and she's off to her next great adventure. And like I said, I posted my my email in the chat box, and if you're interested in learning more about the alcohol and drug certification prep course, attending that virtually, we've got a few virtual spots open. You reach out to me, and we can talk more, and I can at least give you the registration link. Next month, Avis, what are we talking about next month? I'm looking at my whiteboard in the background here. Don't look at this too closely, ladies and gentlemen. You'll go into a trance. There's a lot of information on this whiteboard, but it looks like we are going to talk about professional readiness next month. So that should be a good conversation, and I think we'll have Avis back again to share some information about professional readiness as it relates to the behavioral health field. So we will see you all next month, if not before. And we do have a virtual native talking circle coming up Monday, May 8th. If you're interested, we'd love to have you. I know several of you attend that or have attended that. Love to see you there. Until next time, I want to give another thanks to Avis Garcia for her presentation today. And of course, to all of you for staying on with us here throughout this entire webinar. Really appreciate you all. Until next time, please stay safe, stay healthy, and most importantly, stay connected. Okay? See you again. See you again soon. Take care.